yesterday? Yesterday we were checking answers one at a time, making sure people could answer them. Today, put this on video for you, finalize this. Number one was this. If you chose the factor route, this is difference of cubes. This is out of the booklet. This is the way to factor is difference of cubes. 2x minus 3, if you set that factor equals 0, you get, add the 3, divide the 2, you get 3 halves and 1 1/2. This portion does not factor, so we use the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And the quadratic formula simplifies down to negative 3 plus or minus 3i roots of 3 over 4. If you did not use this factor approach and quadratic formula approach, which is by far the harder, more time-consuming way, you could have typed it in your calculator and used complex poly tools. You'd still get 3 halves as the one real one, and you would get I think that's supposed to be a negative, isn't it? A negative 0.75 plus or minus 1.299038-ish I. And depending upon what test you're looking at, depends on how that answer would be given. Number 3, on 3, I just simply use the calculator because it is a quick approach, and you would get negative 3 as a solution and 1.5 plus or minus 2.598I. I rounded there, I believe. Number 11, if you factored 11 and set those equal to 0, you could get positive and negative square root of 8 and positive and negative square root of 2. Your calculator would give you positive that value as 2.828 and that value as 1.414, still plus or minus. $13 is another one you could backwards FOIL and end up with these 4 solutions. That's 4 of them. Plus or minus square root of 7, plus or minus square root of 2. I'm pretty sure your calculator gives it to you this way. Plus or minus 2.654, plus or minus 1.414. $18. Don't worry about all this over here, I guess. I don't know what I think I was showing how it could factor. Yeah, that you get plus or minus 2, and you get plus or minus 0.7071-ish. This one does backwards FOIL. 2x squared minus 1, x squared minus 4. If you wanted to factor it, set them equal to 0. This side over here, you would end up with the square root of 4, which is positive and negative 2. That's where that comes from. And then this side over here, you end up with a square root of 1/2, which is where that comes from. 20, so by the way, again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 solutions. To the 4th power, you'll end up with 4 solutions. 20, you get 0, negative 5, 6, plus or minus 3.726I. Turn the page, or I'll turn the page. 22, negative 2/3, 0, 0, and 7/5. 25, it says to factor, the instructions. If we just find the solutions of 25, if it was something you found the solutions of, you would get 5 and negative 2.5 plus or minus 4.33I. If you factored it, this would be your factors right here. This is a difference of cubes, and you could factor it into those two based on the formula. That formula right there. 27, if you solve it, get plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 1.414i. 27 is right here. If you factor it, like the instructions say factor, write this down if you didn't factor, because I might ask you this. X plus 4 plus 2 minus 2, or x, I don't know why I'm saying x to the fourth power plus x squared minus 2 can be factored into x squared minus 1 and x squared plus 2. This would FOIL x squared to give you x to the fourth, negative 1 and positive 2 to give you negative 2, and the outer and inner would simplify to 1x squared. This right one, x squared plus 2, can't factor. There's no way of factoring that, but x squared minus 1, that's something we learned in the last chapter that still allows you to factor. Do y'all remember what that is? What allows me to factor this x squared minus 1? It's something we learned in the last chapter. That's right, difference of squares. You're on the right track. So like I said, the x squared plus 2 doesn't factor, but x squared minus 1 can factor to x and x, minus 1 plus 1. That is a difference of squares. That's the factors that would give you those solutions. And the last one, 29, positive negative 2i, positive negative 2.4494. Let's talk about factoring 29. Tell me, 29 is x to the fourth, right? Is it plus 2x squared? Minus 2x squared? Thank you. Then what? So let's try to backwards FOIL this. It is a trinomial that I believe we can figure out what two factors multiply together to make it. What do you think the first are going to be? Yes. X squared and x squared can make x to the fourth. That's right. One's positive, one's negative. The middle is negative, so where do I like using 6 and 4 to make 24 and end up with a negative 2. Where should the 6 go? Yeah, negative here, 4 here. That leaves us that. Is either one of those a difference of squares? Yes. It would have a minus sign, so it'd be this one, it couldn't be this one. And both of them have to have a square root. X squared does have a square root. It's x. So x times x. But 6 does not have a square root. So it's not. This one, like right here, it was a minus sign. X squared had a square root of x, and 1 has a square root of 1. 1 times 1. So it has to be a binomial with a minus sign, and both have a square root. This one is a plus sign, though, so it's not a difference of squares. So this one can't factor any farther. That is, if you remember the solutions right here, positive negative 2.4494, that's going to come from this one, because you're going to add the 6 and take its square root. Someone take the square root of 6 on your calculator, please. So that 2.449, that came from the fact that if you put x squared minus 6 equal to 0, add the 6, take the square root of both sides, x equals positive negative 2.4494. That is where those two solutions came from. This one right here, x squared plus 4 equal to 0. You'd subtract the 4. take the square root of a -4, that's where the positive and negative 2i is coming from. Okay. All right, there's all the solutions to 6-4.